Today, we're going to build something cool. We're going to build an application that can practically think for itself. We'll dive into two of the most powerful tools in the AWS cloud, Lambda and DynamoDB, and see how they work together to create workflows that react instantly, automatically, making your apps way smarter and more efficient.
So let's just kick things off with the big question, right? How do you build an app that doesn't just sit there waiting for instructions, but actually reacts on its own, in real time, the second something happens? You know, a new user signs up, an item sells out, a message gets posted. How do you make your app trigger an action right then and there with zero human intervention?
Well, the answer lies in this really powerful idea called an event-driven architecture. Honestly, this is the modern way to build apps that are super fast, can scale to the moon, and are just plain efficient. Okay, so at the heart of all this is the event. And an event is really just a simple fact that something has changed. That's it. So instead of the part of your app that handles signups having to know exactly how to call the email service, it just shouts into the void, hey, a new user was just created. And then other services, like your email service, can listen for that announcement and decide if they care enough to do something about it. This makes your whole system way more flexible because the pieces aren't all tangled together.
To build this, we're going to need a couple of key components. Let's start with building block number 1, which is all about where we're going to put our data. And I want you to picture it as an infinite filing cabinet.
This magical cabinet? That's DynamoDB. It's a database, yeah, but it's incredibly flexible, and it's built to scale to basically any size without you even having to think about it. It's the perfect spot to store stuff like user profiles, product catalogs, you name it.
And this slide really nails the key difference. A traditional SQL database, it's like a super strict library catalog. Every single piece of data has to fit perfectly into a predefined shelf, a rigid structure. DynamoDB, on the other hand, is what we call a NoSQL database. It's more like a bunch of flexible file folders. You can store your information in whatever way makes sense for that specific item, without having to define it all up front. And that flexibility, believe me, is a massive advantage for modern apps.
Okay, so we've got a place to store our data. Now we need something to actually do work on that data. So let's meet our second building block, your very own on-demand assistant.
And this assistant is AWS Lambda. Lambda lets you run your code, Node.js, Python, whatever you like, without ever thinking about a server. Seriously, this assistant is just there, waiting. When a task comes in, it instantly springs into action, does its job, and poof, it's gone again. You don't have to manage or pay for a computer to be sitting there running 24/7, just in case.
This whole idea has a name, serverless computing. Now, that doesn't mean there are no servers. Of course there are. It just means you don't have to deal with them. AWS handles all of it. The infrastructure, the scaling, the patching, everything. You just get to focus on writing the code that does what you need it to do.
And here is the absolute killer feature. With Lambda, you truly, and I mean truly, only pay for what you use. If your code runs for just 100 milliseconds to send an email, you only pay for those 100 milliseconds. If it doesn't run at all that day, you pay nothing. It is an unbelievably efficient way to run things.
So we have our infinite filing cabinet, DynamoDB, and our on-demand assistant, Lambda. But how do we get the cabinet to tell the assistant, hey, there's a new task for you? This is where the magic really happens.
Let's go back to our analogy. Imagine that every single time a file is added, or updated, or even deleted from our filing cabinet, it automatically sends out a little memo that describes exactly what just happened. Well, that's precisely what DynamoDB Streams does.
The official name for this magic notification system is a DynamoDB Stream. When you flip this on for your table, it creates this perfect, chronological log of every single change. An item was inserted, it's in the stream. An item was updated with new info, it's in the stream. An item was deleted, you guessed it, it's in the stream. All right, we have all our pieces, our data store, our code executor, and that magic wire that connects them. Now, let's put it all together and build a real-world automated workflow.
Remember our question from the very beginning? How can we react instantly? Let's solve it with a super common example. Sending a welcome email the very moment a new user creates an account.
Okay, here's the play-by-play. First, a new user signs up. Their data gets saved in our DynamoDB table, our filing cabinet. Second, because we have streams turned on, that action immediately fires off a new item event, our magic notification. Third, our Lambda function, our on-demand assistant, has been set up to listen to that stream. It sees the notification and is instantly woken up. And finally, the Lambda function runs your code, grabs the new user's email from the event, and sends them that welcome email. The whole thing happens almost instantly, and it's completely automatic.
Now, this might sound like a simple little example, but this pattern, it is incredibly powerful, and it unlocks some huge benefits for how we build software today.
So why do we build this way? Well, first, it's pretty much real time. Things happen when they happen, not hours later. Second, it scales like a dream. If 1,000 users sign up all at once, AWS just spins up 1,000 copies of your Lambda function to handle the load. You don't do a thing. Third, it actually makes things less complex. Your sign-up code doesn't need to know anything about sending emails. They're totally separate, which makes your code so much easier to maintain. And finally, it's cheap. You're not paying for an idle server, you're only paying for those few milliseconds it takes to send an email.
And this isn't just for welcome emails. You can use this pattern for anything. Send a push notification, update a search index the second a product's price changes, instantly back up data to another system, create a perfect audit log for security. You can even kick off massive data analytics jobs. The possibilities are, well, pretty much endless. So take a second and let that sink in. By connecting a database stream to a serverless function, you've just unlocked one of the most fundamental and powerful patterns used in modern cloud applications. This is really the core of how you build responsive, scalable, and efficient systems.
So that leaves us with just one last exciting question. Now that you know how to make your applications react automatically to the world around them, what amazing event-driven system will you build?